He worked at the tool and die mill in Greenville, South Carolina. And he had a tragic, really, childhood. His dad committed suicide. His mother died giving birth to him. And he just knelt down. And he didn't go to church or even know anything about, church. But he just knelt down at the water fountain on a Monday morning. And he just said, God, if you're there.
Wow.
And I mean, God hears those kinds of prayers. Those are real surrender prayers. And he's like, you know, if you meet me here, I'll give you my life. And he did.
In the final year of her life, Joni Lamb sold 3 homes. She transferred 4 more into a trust designed to bypass probate. She removed her husband's name from a nearly $3 million beachfront property. She sold the network's private jet. And on Daystar's own website, during that same period, a legacy stewardship page was encouraging viewers to consider putting the television network in their wills. Those 2 things were happening simultaneously. The president of one of the world's largest Christian broadcasting networks was quietly, methodically, and with considerable legal precision restructuring her personal estate, while the network she led was asking its audience to leave it their inheritances. That is not an accusation. Every element of it is documented through public property records, deed filings, and investigative reporting from sources including Trinity Foundation and the Roy's Report. It is, however, a story that deserves to be told carefully and completely, because the paper trail Joni Lamb left behind in her final year says things that no official statement from Daystar has yet addressed. What she built, the real scale of it. Before the paper trail makes sense, the foundation needs to be understood clearly. Joni Lamb, born Joni Trammell in 1960 in Greenville, South Carolina, co-founded the Daystar television network with her husband Marcus Lamb in 1993. What began as a modest broadcasting operation in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, described by Pastor Gentazin Franklin at her memorial service as 2 cameras and a little set, grew over 3 decades into what Daystar now describes as one of the largest Christian television networks on Earth, with a claimed reach of more than 2 billion homes across satellite, cable, and digital platforms worldwide. Joni was not a figurehead in that growth. She co-hosted, produced, and anchored the network. Is daily programming for 40 years. The network earned 10 Telly Awards, 3 Lone Star Emmy Awards, and received 6 additional Emmy nominations. Most of that recognition tied directly to Joni's on-air work. She was an executive in every meaningful sense, someone who built this institution with her own sustained effort across 4 decades. Marcus Lamb died in November 2021, 64 years old, from COVID-19 complications. His death received national coverage from the New York Times, NBC News, The Washington Post, and NPR, in part because Marcus had been a vocal opponent of COVID vaccination, and his network had provided a platform for vaccine skeptics throughout the pandemic. After his death, Joni became the sole president and public face of a billion-dollar institution she had never run alone. And what she did in the years that followed, and specifically in the final year of her life, is the subject of this account, the compensation picture. To understand the financial scale of what we are looking at, the compensation picture matters. Daystar's parent organization is Word of God Fellowship Incorporated, a Georgia-registered nonprofit. Because it claims church status, it is not legally required to file Form 990 financial disclosures with the IRS. That means the public cannot verify from standard documents what the ministry earns, how it spends its money, or what it pays its executives. What has been pieced together through investigative reporting, specifically through internal Daystar documents obtained by the Roy's Report, is that Joni's annual compensation increased by approximately 140% following Marcus's death, rising to over $1 million annually by fiscal year 2023. For additional context, Trinity Foundation, a Dallas-based ministry accountability organization that successfully obtained unsealed financial records through legal intervention in a case connected to Daystar, documented that Marcus and Joni Lamb received a combined tax-exempt clergy housing allowance totaling more than $1.6 million between 2002 and 2011 alone. That is a tax benefit that, under the church exemption, does not appear in any public filing. Daystar is not a member of the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability. It no longer publishes an annual report. Its estimated annual revenue has been placed at between $100 million and $114 million. Its total assets have been estimated at more than $230 million. The people giving to this network, estimated at roughly $35 million in viewer donations annually, have no public accounting of how those funds are used. And yet on Daystar's own website, a legacy stewardship page explicitly encourages viewers to consider the network in their estate planning. The page lists specific reasons for estate giving, including preventing certain persons from receiving your assets and ensuring your property is transferred to your chosen recipients rather than the state. Those reasons, as we are about to see, map almost exactly onto what Joni Lamb was doing with her own assets in her final year. 7 properties, and what happened to them. In March 2025, reporting by Julie Roys with research assistance from Trinity Foundation documented that Joni Lamb personally owned 7 residential properties across 4 states with a combined estimated value of approximately $11.7 million. Those properties included her primary 2-story residence in Colleyville, Texas, estimated by Redfin at approximately $3.3 million and valued by the Tarrant County Appraisal District at nearly $5.8 million for tax purposes. She also owned a second home under construction in a gated Colleyville community, estimated at $3.9 million, a beachfront condominium in Miramar Beach, Florida, purchased with Doug Weiss in September 2023 for approximately $2.9 million. A riverfront lake house on the Brazos River in Granbury, Texas, a rental home in Grapevine, Texas, a property in Monroe, Georgia where her sister lives, and a modest property in Taylor, South Carolina. 3 of those properties had been purchased after Marcus's death. What happened to that portfolio in the 12 months before Joni died is documented through public deeds and property records. In October 2025, approximately 6 months before her death, Joni sold her primary Colleyville, Texas residence. The new owner financed the purchase with a loan of $2.35 million, not including whatever down payment was made. Given the significant spread between Redfin's estimated value and the county's appraisal figure, the true sale price remains unconfirmed. She also sold her Taylor, South Carolina property for $300,000. Her Granbury, Texas lake house, estimated by Redfin at approximately $830,000. Also went through a sale, though the final confirmed price is not publicly available. 3 properties sold in roughly 1 year, and she transferred her Monroe, Georgia home, along with at least 3 additional properties, into an entity called the Joni Lamb Trust, structured specifically so those assets could be distributed after her death without going through probate. Then came the quitclaim deed, the document filed 8 weeks before she died. Approximately 8 weeks before Joni Lamb died, a quitclaim deed was filed on T. P. Miramar Beach, Florida condominium, the beachfront property she and Doug Weiss had purchased together in September 2023 for approximately $2.9 million. Doug Weiss's name was removed from the title. A quitclaim deed does not file itself. It requires legal preparation, intentional execution, and formal filing. Joni Lamb had spent 4 decades managing a nonprofit organization with hundreds of millions in assets and personally owned real estate across 4 states. She understood precisely what that document meant and what it accomplished. She filed it 8 weeks before she died. The Florida property had not been a peripheral asset. According to Trinity Foundation's jet tracking investigation, which uses publicly available ADS-B exchange flight data, the Daystar Gulfstream GV, FAA tail number N279PH, made 13 round trips between Fort Worth and the Destin, Florida area over an 18-month period. Using publicly available cost-per-mile aviation data, Trinity Foundation estimated those flights cost approximately $769,000 in ministry funds. Commercial round-trip tickets for those same routes were available for as little as a few $100s each. The jet itself is now gone. Daystar sold the Gulfstream in the period surrounding Joni's death. The sale of a ministry aircraft is a significant operational change for an organization of this scale, and it happened as part of a broader pattern of asset reduction and restructuring. The quit-claim deed. 3 properties sold, 4 placed in trust. The jet liquidated. That is not a routine year of financial management. That is a woman who knew her time was running out, making very deliberate decisions about what she was leaving behind and to whom. The honeymoon and the credit card. One additional financial detail from the period following the marriage deserves documentation. The Roys report obtained 2 Daystar expense reports showing approximately $100,000 in charges to a Daystar ministry credit card that appeared to correspond with honeymoon travel following Joni and Doug's June 2023 wedding. When the Roy's report raised the matter, Joni publicly denied that ministry funds had been used for the honeymoon. The expense reports, which the Roy's report published, appeared to directly contradict that denial. Trinity Foundation published an analysis of the relevant nonprofit tax code, noting that personal use of a ministry credit card, even if later categorized or reimbursed, raises significant questions under IRS rules governing excess benefit transactions at tax-exempt organizations. No documentation of reimbursement was ever provided to the Roy's report when it was requested. This detail sits alongside the jet usage, the compensation increases, and the overall opacity of the network's finances as part of a pattern that investigators have consistently flagged as warranting transparency that Daystar has not provided, the son, and the succession that never happened. All of this financial documentation exists within the context of a family fracture that became national news. Marcus Lamb left a written email directive, published by Trinity Foundation, stating directly, if Joni passes or retires, then Jonathan Lamb will become the head of Daystar. That document is not legally binding. The board has full authority to appoint whoever they choose, but it was the expressed final written wish of the man who built the institution. What followed after Marcus's death is documented in detail by the Roy's report. Jonathan, Joni's eldest son and the network's vice president, was placed on a performance improvement plan. His salary was cut from $250,000 to $150,000. His company car was taken away. A GPS tracker was discovered in that car, with expense records showing it had been purchased recently, contradicting Daystar's claim that all vehicles had been tracked since Marcus's passing. Jonathan and Susie were followed by a private investigator. Jonathan refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement presented to him at a board meeting. A Daystar attorney told him on recording, "You don't have the right to challenge the authority of your organization." On November 16, 2024, one day after the Roy's report contacted Joni for comment on the family's allegations, the Daystar security chief arrived at Jonathan and Susie's home in a bulletproof vest to deliver a termination letter. When Joni died on May 7, 2026, Jonathan was not called. Susie posted publicly that they were close by and that nobody reached out as Joni was dying. The person who eventually contacted Jonathan was Daystar attorney Tom Callender, calling to inform him his mother was already gone. Susie wrote in a public post that became widely circulated across Christian social media, "I'm angry because the love was real." She described dreaming of sitting on a beach with Joni again, drinking coffee, talking about Jesus, of warmth returning, of a miracle of forgiveness. That miracle did not happen on this side of eternity. What the paper trail asks of the church. Here is what the documentation adds up to, stated plainly. Joni Lamb built something that genuinely mattered to millions of people. The network's reach is real. The programming it has carried into homes across more than 160 countries is real. The faith it has sustained in places where Christian broadcasting was the only available source of spiritual community is real. That is not nothing, and it deserves to be acknowledged clearly alongside everything else. But the paper trail Joni left behind in her final year also exists. 3 homes sold, 4 properties placed in trust, a beachfront condo stripped of her husband's name 8 weeks before she died, a private jet liquidated, a compensation package exceeding $1 million annually, a honeymoon charge to a ministry credit card, a son terminated the day after a journalist called for comment, a daughter-in-law not notified when her mother-in-law was dying, and throughout all of it, on the same website where Joni was quietly restructuring her personal estate, a page asking viewers to leave their inheritances to the network she led. The American church has a long-standing and unresolved problem with financial transparency. Daystar did not create that problem. It inherited it, operated within it, and has now left it for others to navigate. The question is whether the people running what remains of that institution and the people in the audience who have financially sustained it will finally demand something different. Clearer books, real accountability, financial disclosure that treats donor generosity as a sacred trust rather than an operational resource. Because the viewers who considered putting Daystar in their wills deserve to know how the network spent its money, and the family members who waited for a phone call that never came deserve, at minimum, an honest accounting of what happened and why. That is the paper trail, documented, sourced, and as complete as publicly available records allow. Here is the question I want to leave with this community. Which part of this story do you believe the broader church needs to reckon with most honestly? The financial accountability questions, the family and governance failures, or something else entirely? Say it in the comments. This is a real conversation, not a verdict, and the people who show up here think carefully about these things. If you are not subscribed, now is the time. Turn on notifications. This story is still developing. The succession question, the estate, the board, and when the next chapter arrives, you will want the sourced account. Thank you for watching. We will keep following the evidence wherever it leads.